Today on Newsgirls, mysterious OpenAI whistleblower death.
In the bloodstains, they found synthetic hair like what's found in a wig.
But his parents say he was murdered in cold blood to shut him up.
OpenAI, they're lying to us. They're not releasing his files.
People are going crazy for eggs. Have you seen the videos of the egg line wrapping around all of Costco's perimeter?
Trump shared an article on Truth Social called "Shut Up About Egg Prices."
And vacation like the White Lotus. The first 2 seasons drove a 300% increase in travel demand to Hawaii and Sicily.
And the 4 seasons is obviously cashing in on the interest. They launched a private jet itinerary.
The Ratliffs, the family in the White Lotus, probably spending $40,000.
Whoa.
Welcome to Newsgirls.
I'm Wren.
And I'm Mabel.
Let's get into the stories.
OpenAI engineer and whistleblower Suchir Balaji was found dead in November after his parents reported him missing. And after 40 minutes of surveying the scene, the San Francisco Medical Examiner's Office ruled his death to be a suicide. But there's a lot of mysterious details in this whole situation that hint at foul play.
Suchir was one of the core engineers developing the groundbreaking AI ChatGPT. In fact, OpenAI's co-founder said GPT wouldn't have succeeded without him.
Yeah, he was organizing and contributing all of these huge data sets that were used to train GPT-4, which is of course the language behind ChatGPT. So he had all of this insider knowledge on how the product and the company worked.
But he'd grown disenchanted with the technology he helped create, left his job, and concluded that OpenAI was so grossly violating copyright laws that not only was it illegal, it was also unsustainable for the internet itself. Just weeks before his death, he spoke out against the company.
In October, the New York Times published an interview with Suchir that sent shockwaves through the tech world. He said, "If you believe what I believe, you have to just leave the company."
Now, OpenAI says their use of copyrighted materials falls under fair use, claiming their AI is trained on publicly available data and substantially transforms the copyrighted material.
Suchir didn't believe that OpenAI followed any of the criteria. So he explained that when GPT-4 learns, it creates a copy of all of the data that it learns from. So when ChatGPT produces its own findings or images or whatever, it's impossible for that material to not be copyrighted.
Publishers have filed lawsuits against the company, claiming it's illegally using news articles and books to train its software. And Suchir said he'd try to testify in these cases and considered the New York Times lawsuit to be the most serious.
Times lawyers even named him in a November 18th court filing as someone who might have unique and relevant documents supporting allegations of OpenAI's willful copyright infringement.
And then 8 days later, his body is found and his death is ruled a suicide. But his parents say he was murdered in cold blood to shut him up. They say the funeral home they took Suchir's body to suggested they get a second autopsy because his death seemed suspicious.
And in that second autopsy, they found an injury on the left side of Suchir's head that indicated that he was maybe assaulted before he died.
It also showed that the bullet was shot from above. It entered just above his nose and lodged just at the back of his skull. And the private medical examiner says this angle would be nearly impossible for Suchir to inflict on himself.
Suchir's parents were skeptical of the police report, so they actually got their own crime scene report done that showed suspicious findings at the scene. Suchir's apartment was ransacked, and his parents said it was like someone was searching for something. Blood was splattered kind of far from his body, which was weird. And this was kind of crazy to us. In the bloodstains, they found 2 tufts of synthetic hair, like what's found in a wig.
The second report also found that some of the drops of blood appear to have fallen when the victim was sitting or possibly crawling, and then others while the victim was standing. And some of the blood may have even been coughed up, and they concluded Suchir likely bled for 15 to 30 minutes.
The investigation also noted the disturbed surroundings support possibility of fights or resistance. It also mentioned the lack of a suicide note and a missing thumb drive, which the parents say was stolen to hide incriminating material.
Well, keep in mind, if these legal cases don't go OpenAI's way, they stand to lose billions of dollars, and the industry as a whole would lose trillions, and Suchir might have known more than anyone else about the inner workings. And remember the New York Times lawsuit that listed him as having documents supporting copyright infringement? Well, his parents think that indicates that Suchir had more to reveal that they might have wanted to stop.
But then, of course, there are pieces of evidence in this very murky situation that point to the fact that it was a suicide. Suchir actually owned the gun that shot him, so he bought it 10 months before his death, and it was found near his body.
The toxicology report also found dangerously high levels of alcohol and drugs in his system, including amphetamines. Now, his parents insist that he was given those drugs, like roofied or something. Also, the official medical examiner ruled there were no signs of foul play.
But Suchir's parents have rebuttals to all of these points. Their big theory is that OpenAI is colluding with the city of San Francisco and the police department to hush up what they say is the real reason that their son was undoubtedly murdered.
Yeah, Sam Altman is really close to the San Francisco city government, so they think he has them in his pocket. For example, the second crime scene report said the police reported inaccurate information when they concluded no one else could have entered his apartment, even though the police never retrieved CCTV footage from the leasing office.
Suchir's parents have held off on having a funeral or burying his body and instead have raised $85,000 to pay lawyers, investigators, and forensic experts to prove that he was murdered. So we're actually about to speak with Purnima Ramarao and Balaji Ramamurthy about their investigation into their son's death. So the police took 40 minutes to rule Suchir's death as a suicide, but you both insist that there's evidence of foul play and even asked for an FBI investigation into his death. So what makes you think that there's more to the story?
The very first inconsistency is the spatter of blood. There is no spout of blood on the end of his gun. So if he did that kind of contact shot, there should be blood on it. That's very strange. And also the spent casing, the spent cartridge was intact in the barrel. That doesn't happen to G17 normally.
They decided within 40 minutes means it is not a standard way of doing a report.
It should be only death from gunshot at this point. And also the third point I wanted to make was toxicology report shows very high level of alcohol. Suchir was only a social drinker. He was not heavy drinker, so he could not withstand that.
We know him for 26 years. They know him only after his death. So their information data is very limited. So we know more of him, what his behavior and what his last day also I spoke to him. There is no indication of depression or any suicidal thoughts there.
Yeah, tell us more. That was another question we had. What was his disposition like when in your last call with him?
He was happy. He was very happy.
It was his birthday week, and he came from Catalina Island with friends. He went, he celebrated. Whole week he was there. So he came that Friday. We were talking around 15 minutes. And I wished him for his birthday and sent him a gift also.
There was fresh supply of groceries in his apartment. He picked up dinner at 7:30. And someone who is suicidal, the first sign is they isolate themselves, right? He was outdoor. He was constantly meeting friends. There are 10 friends who say he cannot do this.
The apartment, he always keeps it neat and tidy, not like what we saw in the last time. So it was ransacked, actually.
Yeah, all of that makes sense that you guys wanted to kind of push for your own investigation. So we understand that you got your own forensic report done and autopsy, a second autopsy. So through that, what did you find that's different from the original police report?
We've already seen the autopsy pictures. There are wounds inside the mouth that cannot be accounted for. And his cheekbone is broken. His face is disfigured on the right side. OCME did not mention anything about it. And his tongue is actually, there are burn marks on his tongue. We showed this angle to many doctors and radiologists. Everybody says it's very unlikely that he can shoot himself in that angle. We are consulting toxicologists, chief toxicologists from another state, and 2 radiologists from USA. We've also complained to National Association of Medical Examiners, telling them that this is malpractice in their organization. If they don't listen, we'll go higher up.
And the toxicology report was ready in December. Even though the reports were ready, they are not releasing it. That also makes suspicious.
And he was an OpenAI whistleblower. He wrote in his journal, I'm a credible threat.
We understand he bought the gun 10 months beforehand.
Right.
Like, why do you think he did that?
We just asked all his friends because we didn't know he bought a gun. They all knew. He bought it for self-defense. It means something has happened at work that he was afraid of. That's our logic. But OpenAI, they're lying to us. They're not releasing his files.
So flat out, what is your statement on what you think happened to your son and why? We understand that you think that there's some kind of collusion going on and that OpenAI is involved.
All we can say is 1 month after his whistleblower interview, he was found dead. And the impact of this whistleblower interview is huge. He also wrote a research paper about how to prove the copyright violation. He's very brave. It's going to leak out much more ugly side of OpenAI.
And he was supposed to give in Berkeley MBA program on lecture about ethics. So they invited him also. So he has a lot of talk shows planned for him. They didn't know he passed away. When I picked up his phone, I answered this press people, he's no more. Then they shocked because they already planned the interviews with him.
That's not the only thing. Suchir was invited for AI Summit and he had job offer for 850,000 to 1.5 million.
And speaking of OpenAI, have you guys had any contact with OpenAI? Have you been offered hush money to stop this lawsuit?
They don't even take any responsibility. They say, oh, all sweet words. I think I should show that email. Oh, such young age and all emotional emails. And we'll support the family, they say. Twice, Sam Altman wanted to talk to us. Why? Every time he offered, we reject.
We understand that you filed a lawsuit. Can you tell us about the lawsuit, who it's against, what you're doing?
A lawsuit was against the city of San Francisco to release the report.
Do you think there's any communication between OpenAI and the government, the city government at all?
Oh, yeah, there is loads. Sam Altman was mayor transition committee in San Francisco.
Oh.
His current mayor is a good friend of him.
Wren and I have been talking about how difficult it must be for you both kind of to discuss, the details of his death and dealing with all of these legal aspects while also emotionally dealing with it. At what point do you think it might be time to step back, or are you going to keep pushing?
Never. Never. No matter how difficult it is, we will do whatever is needed. We want justice for our Savan. We are never going to accept anything.
Yeah, every day we are thinking what evidence we
can provide. Every day.
Day and night we are, even in dreams.
Of course.
What would justice look like for Suchir?
Action against whoever did this. Whoever hatched it, they all need to come to court and court has to decide what's the punishment. Whoever executed him followed the plan.
You guys are so strong. Thank you so much for walking us through that.
Wren, what did you have for breakfast today?
Well, I had my usual, which is 4 eggs, part full eggs, part egg whites with avocado toast.
4 eggs? Oh my God, you're going to be so poor soon with all of this crazy eggflation going on.
I know, I've been following all the stories. Like, have you seen the videos of like the egg line wrapping around all of Costco's perimeter?
I entered Costco and I was on my mission for eggs. Then this happened. We got here at 9 a.m. right when they opened, and there was already a line like this. And there it is, the Fort Knox of eggs.
Costco just opened at 10, and there was already a line outside, like Disneyland. This is crazy, guys.
And now Costco and Trader Joe's are limiting the number of cartons each customer can buy. And 100,000 eggs were stolen from a grocery store in Pennsylvania.
No, like people are getting desperate. I've seen reports of eggs being smuggled across the southern border, and companies like Rent the Chicken are popping up where you can like rent hens for 6 months so you can produce your own eggs.
Denny's and Waffle House are adding egg surcharges to their menu. And Easter's just over a month away, and that's usually the highest egg demand of the year. But I think it's safe to say no one is dying eggs this year.
And these rising egg prices are getting a lot of national attention. So over the weekend, Trump shared an article on Truth Social called "Shut Up About Egg Prices." So the article says a dozen eggs currently cost around $7, which is up from just $2 in October.
Which is an all-time record. And the USDA predicts egg prices will continue to increase 41% in 2025. And Americans consume almost 100 billion eggs a year, so this is obviously a huge issue. And beyond just eating them, they're required to bake basically anything. You put them in dressing or sauces, like
100 billion eggs and you consume 20 billion of them. Yeah. Consumer demand for eggs has actually been up for 23 consecutive months. And this is, of course, because of the bird flu that hit the US in 2022 and has infected or killed 166 million birds so far. So it started in wild birds, spread to poultry, then cattle, and now there are cases of it infecting people. So one person died in January, a few have been hospitalized, and there are just no signs of the bird flu stopping anytime soon.
And the USDA's longstanding policy is that if one bird in a flock tests positive for the virus, the entire flock has to be killed, which makes sense. It's just unfortunate the farmers have to pay not only for the killing of the rest of the flock, but also replacing them with healthy stock, which can take up to 6 months.
And roughly 15% of the country's egg-laying chickens have been killed in the past 4 months, and egg prices in that period have risen 255%. So there's just really tight supply and really high demand, which has led the U.S. to start importing tons of eggs.
Yes, Turkey is sending 15,000 tons of eggs, and Brazil is doubling its egg exports to 35,000 tons. And this is interesting because the U.S. only recently allowed Brazilian eggs to be imported for human consumption, and previously they were only reserved for pet food.
Yeah, don't feel great about that. It's just clear that the U.S. is desperate for eggs, and the world kind of knows it. Last month, a Ukrainian official joked that Ukraine should just send the U.S. eggs for continued financial and military support.
Well, we all remember that press conference where Trump was surrounded by groceries.
And I went on groceries. It's a very simple word, groceries. Like almost, who uses the word? I started using the word, the groceries. When you buy apples, when you buy bacon, when you buy eggs, they would double and triple the price over a short period of time. And I won an election based on that. We're going to bring those prices way down.
But now that he's president, he is changing his tune a little. Both he and the press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, continue to blame Biden.
Because there is a lot of reporting out there that is putting the onus on this White House for the increased cost of eggs. I would like to point out to each and every one of you that in 2024, when Joe Biden was in the Oval Office, or upstairs in the residence sleeping, I'm not so sure, egg prices increased 65%. As far as the egg shortage, what's also contributing to that is that the Biden administration in the Department of Agriculture directed the mass killing of more than 100 million chickens.
Which is interesting because Biden was actually criticized by public health officials for not doing enough to stop the spread of bird flu when he was president. But I guess Trump's saying he did too much.
And I guess an outbreak that hit the world in 2022 can't be blamed on a single administration in its third month, but it is Trump's problem now, and it was a campaign promise to sort the issue. He literally said, starting the day I take the oath of office, I will rapidly drive prices down, and is now posting shut up about eggs. So I don't know, it's like a little bit inconsistent, and his strategy is kind of confused. Like during the campaign, he said he'd drive down prices by increasing drilling.
Vance also said the way to drive down prices is to encourage more capital investment into the country. They remind me of the water tank guy meme where he sticks like the piece of tape on the leak. They're like, drilling or investment, is just going to solve everything.
Yeah, and adding tariffs. So he's slapping 25% tariffs on Mexico, which is actually where we get over 60% of our fruits and vegetables. So that would just drive grocery prices up even more.
But let's take a look at what he has done to combat bird flu and the eggpocalypse.
So last month, the USDA fired officials that were working specifically on the H5N1 avian flu outbreak, which is bird flu. And since the outbreak has gotten worse, they're now scrambling around trying to rehire everyone that they fired.
That's a major oops moment. And the USDA historically has had the strongest avian flu surveillance program in the world.
And it seems like all of these acclaimed departments and protocols that were put in place are changing. So last month, officials said that they couldn't reach anyone at the White House if they flagged bird flu in the area. And an insider said that the administration is slow walking critical updates and that communication isn't fast enough.
Yeah, local public health departments say it's made their job way more difficult because they're not getting timely updates from the CDC about what's going on at the national level. For example, Wyoming confirmed its first case of avian flu in a human, but nearby counties learned about it through the Wyoming Health Department update instead of hearing directly from the CDC.
And for context, the CDC doesn't have a confirmed director yet, though Trump's HHS pick, RFK, is confirmed.
Ah, yes, RFK, the one that said he'd like to give infectious disease research a break for 8 years.
Oh yeah, nice. We also know that the Trump administration has stopped reporting flu data to the World Health Organization and that the federal funding freeze has left virus researchers lost and wondering whether their research would continue.
But the Trump administration and the USDA have released a 5-part, $1 billion plan to combat avian flu and reduce egg prices. So they're going to invest in gold standard biosecurity measures, bring in more hens to repopulate flocks, remove unnecessary regulatory burdens like geographical price differences, increase aid to farmers, and test vaccines that protect chickens.
And the plan is getting positive responses, especially from farmers about giving chickens vaccines. So the USDA has given conditional approval to develop them. And these vaccines aren't new. They're used in other countries already, like China, Mexico, France, and Vietnam. It's just kind of funny to me that the somewhat anti-vax administration is so supportive of vaccinating chickens.
I mean, it is one solution to the bird flu. This is also such an endorsement for smaller farms because the pathogen risk when you have 3 million birds compared to like 30,000 is way greater. But most eggs in the US do come from mega farms, so...
Which is why the DOJ is now investigating whether major egg companies are violating antitrust laws by sharing information about supply and pricing, which possibly causes prices to skyrocket.
The egg production industry has consolidated over the past 3 decades, and now 5 producers control over half the egg market in the US. And 2 years ago, the largest producers were found liable for inflating prices in the 2000s. So there is precedent for this.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think of like giant evil egg companies, but in 2011, Kraft and General Mills sued the big egg producers, claiming that they had colluded to reduce the supply of eggs to increase prices. The case went to a jury, which finally in 2023 found that the egg producers had illegally inflated prices, calculating $53 million in damages.
So there was a lot of pressure on the DOJ to launch this investigation, and it'll be interesting to see if any legal action is taken.
So, Wren, you're probably wondering if your breakfast is in jeopardy. Are eggs safe to eat?
I love that this is part of my brand now.
Egg girl.
But I am actually wondering.
Well, lucky for you and over 300 million Americans, experts say that eggs are safe to eat. Contaminated eggs are probably never going to make it to your kitchen. And even if they do, cooking them to 165 degrees kills bacteria and viruses, including the bird flu.
Okay, and that makes sense because it's the same with like chicken. It's safe as long as you cook it through, or pasteurized milk, like the pasteurization process like neutralizes the viruses.
Right, which is why raw milk is risky because the virus replicates in cows' mammary glands. RFK.
I'm sure we've all been tuning in to the 3rd season of White Lotus, airing every Sunday night on HBO and Max. It's actually the most watched show on streaming right now. This season is set in the exotic jungle of Thailand, and like always, there's different groups of travelers, and it's unclear how they're all intertwined, and lots of mystery about who will be murdered.
Yeah, it's been this insane phenomenon since season 1. The show gets these like star-studded casts and is so good at interweaving their plots together and like building tension and suspense. It's won 6 Emmys and been nominated 23 times, and every person I know is like so hooked. 10.2 million viewers watched season 3 in the first week, and now we're at week 4 and the numbers are just growing.
And the show definitely doubles as an advertisement for the luxurious resorts they film at. The first 2 seasons drove a 300% increase in travel demand to Hawaii and Sicily. Season 1 was set at the Four Seasons Wailea on Maui, and season 2 at the Four Seasons Taormina in Sicily.
I had a friend's wedding in Sicily, and on almost everyone's itinerary during the trip was to visit the White Lotus Hotel in Taormina because it's like this must-see hotspot in the area.
Yeah, there's so many articles and posts online of people recreating the White Lotus trips. And recent research found that 2/3 of travelers have considered visiting a location they saw on film or TV, and 39% actually booked a trip to a destination after seeing it on screen.
And the Four Seasons actually has a global partnership with HBO to create immersive experiences around the White Lotus, and the Four Seasons is obviously cashing in on the interest. Like, they launched a private jet itinerary around the show that takes guests to 8 destinations in 20 days.
That is a jam-packed schedule.
No, I know, it's like all around the world. So the trip starts in Singapore, then goes to Thailand, the Maldives, Taormina, Marrakesh, Nevis, Mexico City, and Maui. And all the stays are obviously at the Four Seasons hotels and resorts. And it just sounds so fun. Like, the experiences include snorkeling with a marine biologist, cycling to wineries, night spa rituals in the Maldives, taking a hot air balloon ride in Mexico City.
Oh man, I don't even want to know how much this costs.
A hefty $188,000 to start.
Oh, okay. Well, the Four Seasons is also offering White Lotus experiences at each White Lotus resort, which includes signature cocktails inspired by each season. So Mabel, tell me which one of these you would order. The Pineapple Suite celebrates Maui with tequila, pineapple, and lime juice. The Lotus transports guests to Taormina with gin, peach liqueur, jasmine, and white wine. And Coconut Paradise captures the essence of Koh Samui with vodka, lemongrass, and coconut flakes.
Well, I feel like we would both opt for the Taormina.
Correct.
And as for this season, only 4 episodes are out, but the Four Seasons Koh Samui in Thailand said the resort is running close to 100% capacity, which is definitely an uptick from usual. So they're definitely feeling that White Lotus effect.
And they said they've had multiple groups of guests upgrade to bigger rooms to stay where the characters stayed. Like the 3-bedroom suite where Parker Posey, Patrick Schwarzenegger, and my celebrity crush, Lucius Malfoy, Jason Isaacs, stayed is apparently very highly requested.
And some of these suites come with like butlers and swimming pools and are like mini resorts within resorts. Newsgirls retreat.
And beyond this hotel, traveler interest in Thailand has surged for spring. Expedia data shows flight search increases up to 65%.
And that all makes sense. Like, part of what the show does so well is infuse this like wanderlust, travel envy. I mean, everyone wants to vacation like White Lotus.
Well, to learn more about how the show chooses its idyllic locations and how much it costs, and behind the scenes of shooting in Thailand, we spoke to New York Post reporter Lauren Sarner. So, Lauren, you got an exclusive interview with the executive producer of White Lotus, David Bernad, and you spoke to him about how he decided to set this season in Thailand. Can you tell us what factors he said drove his location scouting?
Hi, everyone. Great to be here. I did interview executive producer David Bernad. He said, like, one factor is obviously what is a country that has a film community or local crew and like good tax incentives for filming, but also what do they want to do thematically? Like this season, he said they were trying to explore Eastern philosophy and Eastern religion versus Western culture. So he said they were focused on Asia, but they hadn't narrowed it down to Thailand. And I know creator Mike White has given interviews saying he originally was thinking maybe Japan, but they kind of honed in on Thailand the more they explored the area, and they did find that they had good film incentives and local crew. So Thailand kind of stood out and became the selection because of all those factors.
Oh, that's so interesting. It seems like every location that White Lotus chooses kind of like blows up as the next tourist destination. So countries and hotels are all kind of like vying over hosting the next season. It kind of reminded us of like the Olympics or something. Do you think that like the producers will start factoring that in at all? Like, how are they being wooed?
So yeah, I did ask about that. I was like, has it become like the Olympics? And he was like, yeah, there is that element of it. And he said it's obviously very flattering for them. He did say first and foremost, though, when they are, deciding where to set a season, they are focusing on the creative side of what they want to do with the story. Maybe there's some countries that weren't on their radar that landed on their radar because of countries wooing them. But he said like creative is the factor first and foremost.
That's good. And that's how it should be, because it's about the art. Something I was surprised in your reporting that you said is that they use multiple hotels. Like the reception is a different hotel than the bedroom. So how many like hotels did they use for this season?
That's correct. Yeah, he said they basically kind of edited together footage from a few hotels to kind of make it into like he kind of used the phrase like Marvel super hotel, just to kind of like get all the footage together into a hotel that suited their purposes. So there were 3 main hotels, and I'm just going to apologize off the bat. I'm probably going to butcher the names. So the main hotel was the Four Seasons Resort. So that's like the primary hotel. So if you're taking a White Lotus vacation, that's like the main one to stay at. But he did explain that they augmented the scenes of the characters eating dinner were filmed at the Rosewood Hotel Phuket. And then he said the Four Seasons had stunning views and great rooms. The reception area wasn't as good for filming, so the reception area was filmed at the Anatara Hotel. So those were the 3 main hotels where the footage was kind of edited together into one hotel.
But like the big question is, if we wanted to vacation like White Lotus without all the like weird drama murder stuff, how much would it cost us?
Before I get into this, I just want to say, although I have not been to Thailand, I have heard that it's a very affordable place to vacation. So if your eyes are popping by what I say, don't worry, this doesn't mean like you cannot go to Thailand. Like it's a very affordable place. But let's say the 2 of you are spending a week at the Anatara, which is where the reception area was filmed. That's the most affordable one. It's around $187 a night. So that's kind of a normal hotel price.
Okay.
So for 2 adults there for a week, it's less than $2,000. Four Seasons Resort, which is the primary location where it's filmed, booking a 1-bedroom villa is around $1,300 per night. Some villas there are more like $2,000 per night. 4-bedroom villas are nearly $8,000 per night.
Whoa.
So for a week there, for 2 people, you're looking at least a $14,000 vacation. There's a 3-bedroom residence villa with a pool that's over $6,000 a night. The Ratliffs, the family in the White Lotus with Jason Isaacs and Patrick Schwarzenegger, they're probably spending around $6,000 a night, making that vacation over $40,000.
Whoa. That's a big price tag.
It is, but I guess if you're doing some white collar crimes like Tim Ratliff is, you can afford it.
So true.
Yeah.
And then the Rosewood, so 2 people for a week in a nice room with a private little pool is around $650 a night. So it's roughly around like $4,000 for a week there.
Okay, so there's quite a spectrum from the Anatar to the Four Seasons. You can, whatever you can budget, like there's options.
Absolutely, yeah.
Do you know if they had to shut down these hotels completely in order to film there?
So yes and no, they did a mixture. He said they did shut it down for most of the shoot, but he said toward the end they were shooting around guests staying there. And because the White Lotus has become a famous and popular show, they did have a few issues where he said he did spot one guy filming them filming from his hotel room balcony. And he had to actually like kind of pause and bring that guy over to the set and watch him delete the footage from his phone.
Oh my gosh.
I feel like we heard that happening when Game of Thrones was big. And so I feel like now the White Lotus has become that kind of show.
Yeah, well, like we live in New York and I feel like there's always like people shooting everywhere. Like I have no idea how they keep like those sets private and like stop people from leaking footage because there's just people everywhere. So they must be like really good at just spotting people.
And also it might be easier if you're at a resort in Thailand rather than like shooting in Times Square.
Definitely. Do you know if the cast and crew also got to stay at the hotels? Because that's like quite a good setup.
It does sound like a good setup. And he said, yes, they do. Although he did say it doesn't feel like a vacation because, you know, they're working really long days and everyone's working hard. He did emphasize that, but I'm sure they had some fun.
Yeah, no, that's like the best gig ever. Last question. So we heard some stories of some interactions with wildlife that were not planned while they were shooting there. Can you tell us about those?
Well, yeah, so I don't know if you saw Walton Goggins went on Jimmy Kimmel. Walton Goggins plays Rick, and he did talk about getting bitten by a snake. Because there was that recent episode where Rick let snakes out of cages. I think he said it wasn't venomous, but he still went to get it checked out at a hospital just out of precaution. But yeah, the executive producer, he did say they did have a snake wrangler on set. But he said like the Thai crew, it's very normal for them and they were used to it. But the American crew was a little more freaked out. And then he said when they were filming, like you can hear the noises of elephants and cicadas in the background. So that's just something that you have to deal with.
Oh, I hate snakes. Like that, I think would do me in from being there. And then how about monkeys?
So he did say, yeah, the footage that we see of the monkeys were in the first episode mostly where they appear to be just kind of around the hotel. Sorry to disappoint you, but they're not there at the hotel. He said that footage was taken at like a nature reserve far away where the monkeys are and then just edited to make it look like the monkeys were at the hotel.
That makes sense.
That
It's
makes
probably
sense.
a better experience for the guests too.
Absolutely. I did, of course, ask him for any hints about the season 4 location, but he did not share. And I don't even know if they have chosen the location.
Well, thanks for being here.
And tune in next week to learn about layoffs at the National Weather Service and another segment of Not Awful News.
Bye.